My name is Lehnert. I am a registered dietitian and certified diabetes educator for Ascension All Saints and St. Francis Hospitals. And I'm here today to talk about nutrition in the COVID-19 era. So a couple of things I'm going to be going over will be, number one, talking about food safety concerns, and then talking a little bit about food insecurity and ways that we can help, and some programs that are out there for those that are experiencing food insecurity at this time. Additionally, I'm going to go over a little bit about what we are doing nutritionally with COVID-19, and then also talking a little bit about setting some healthy goals during this time and making some realistic goals. One of the biggest things to keep in mind is washing your hands. So washing your hands is crucial. We've been told over and over again over the last few months that 20 seconds is the gold standard. Making sure that you are washing well with soap and water, and then also making sure you're getting everywhere on your hands and up into these parts as well. And then making sure that you are disinfecting all surfaces. Now, this goes for any time, even when we aren't through the COVID-19, but it's especially important right now. And then keeping in mind that you should probably be avoiding sharing beverages, foods, things like that, just because there's a greater chance of having spread through sharing foods. Even if it's through your own family, it's just better to be safe than sorry right now. A major question people have had is regarding whether they should be disinfecting groceries. Right now, there isn't any guidelines as far as recommending disinfecting your groceries right after bringing them into your home. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't need to take any precautions. It's just that this is where the hand washing once again comes into play. So washing your hands before and after handling your groceries, and then when you come to the meal prep with those foods, keeping in mind that you want to once again washing your hands before, during, and after preparing meals and touching the different foods. So those are kind of the basics, but when it comes to that. Additionally, then a major problem that people are experiencing right now is food insecurity. Food insecurity is pretty much like what it sounds, not having enough food, not having good access to food. And this is something that is experienced year-round for many families and is worsening for many families right now. And also, there's a lot of new families that are experiencing food insecurity at this time. So one thing to keep in mind is that the government programs that have been available before continue to be available. So things like SNAP, which is the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, that is still available. There are eligibility requirements based on family size and finances, but keep in mind that they have made a few adjustments so that for the next 2 months, going back to April, following through to the end of May at least, they have increased it so that all families who are eligible for SNAP are also eligible now for the maximum benefit. Before, there were some adjustments based on different factors. And so if you are eligible for SNAP, every family is eligible for the maximum. So that's a good benefit for a lot of families. Other things like WIC, Women's, Infant, and Children. That's been a program that's been around for a long time. That is a great benefit to our pregnant mothers, mothers with infants, and then children under the age of 5. And one thing about that is that past income as well as future income is in consideration. There aren't really any major changes to their program right now. Same benefits apply, but they will be taking into account not only what you used to make, but what your income will be looking like going forward. So if your income is drastically changed, cut down, not having any income at all of those things will play a factor even if you had more income that wouldn't have allowed you to qualify previously. So keep those things in mind. Another really big thing that I really encourage those of us who don't utilize the program like WIC is to keep in mind when you're grocery shopping that WIC is labeled on the price tags in the grocery stores underneath the product, and those foods that are labeled WIC approved, they can't make substitutions. So let's say something like or something, you go to the shelves, your favorite usual brand isn't there, there's only a few items to pick from. If you have the choice between choosing a WIC approved and choosing one that maybe isn't, please consider switching to the non-WIC approved one, just because those that are on WIC can't make any substitutions, and so if their WIC approved brand is out, they're just out. They don't get to make a substitution. And so it really helps in taking that into consideration that if you have the ability to not utilize those when there is kind of some scarce supply, please keep that in mind for those that are utilizing the programs. And then a really big thing that not only the Siena school system, but additionally like Racine Unified and other school systems throughout the state, is that our national school lunch and breakfast programs are still funded, and therefore we have the resources to provide food to students, children under the age of 18 during this time. And so John Paul is one of the sites, as well as St. Catherine's High School, and they have the foods are available on Mondays and Wednesdays, and different time frames for each site. So another thing that I wanted to touch on a little bit is with COVID-19 and what kind of nutritional things have we been doing. And I think the first important thing to know is that there is no known cure nor any known treatment specific to COVID-19 at this point in time. And so with that, we have things at hand that we can use to treat the symptoms of it, but nothing that we know to specifically treat or cure COVID-19. And of course, there is tons of research being done to find answers to many of the questions we have and to help develop some of these things. But in the meantime, please make sure to be wary of anyone who's making nutritional claims of anything that can cure, treat, or prevent COVID-19, or really any specific viruses or diseases that might be questionable. And also any products. This time, as we're going through this pandemic, finances can be tight for a lot of people, but people also tend to be creative in finding ways to kind of get you to part with your money. And so just be wary of any of those specific things. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. But one of the things that we are doing currently is we are using a few different supplementations in patients with COVID-19, things that we know work in other populations, and whether or not they have specific benefits with COVID-19, it's still trying to figure it out, but things that may be helpful. So the first thing is zinc, and with zinc, it's well researched for benefits in the common cold. Specifically in the first 24 hours of symptoms of a common cold, they find that it reduces some of the symptoms and possibly can reduce some of the number of days that you're experiencing the symptoms of a common cold. Additionally, one study on the common cold and zinc found that it is possibly inhibiting the ability of that virus to keep replicating. And so whether or not any of that applies further to COVID-19 or other viruses, we still don't exactly know. But taking that information and utilizing it in populations where we do have COVID-19, it is something that we have been trying to do. There could possibly be similar benefits. We aren't sure at this time. And so with that, it's important to keep in mind that you can develop zinc toxicity. So this doesn't mean I want everyone rushing out and buying tons of zinc supplements. It's not necessary. It's not recommended. We're using it in specific populations. But keep in mind that for the average adult, 6 lozenges of like the zinc lozenges, 6 of those are the maximum recommendation for somebody who is ill and wanting to utilize those for like a cold, and up to 4 for children ages 12 to 17. It's not recommended for anybody under the age of 12 just because there aren't a lot of benefits that have been seen, and then there's a high risk of toxicity in that group. So we don't recommend anyone younger than that utilizing it. Symptoms of toxicity can include things like a bad taste in your mouth, loss of smell, and also nausea and vomiting. So considering that some of the symptoms that are associated with COVID-19 tend to be things like loss of taste, bad smell, loss of smell, and things like nausea and vomiting, if people were to rush out, start utilizing these and taking way too many, you might start panicking, thinking you're developing COVID-19. Got a whole nother problem with zinc toxicity instead. So not saying this information to have everyone race out and buy more zinc, but just keeping in mind that these are some things that we're investigating. Actual zinc deficiency is pretty uncommon in North America. So in our population, we really don't see it that frequently. So being deficient isn't really as much of an issue. There's also something with phytates. They are a major storage form of phosphorus for our bodies, and those phytates can kind of bind to zinc and make it less absorbable for you. And so when you're taking in foods that contain zinc, those that are high in phytates you may not absorb as much as like the label may say. So that means that people who follow a vegetarian diet may be at a higher risk of having a deficiency in zinc if they're not being careful with supplementation or with finding other sources. So foods that are high in zinc, pretty common things for most people. So red meats, chicken can be high in zinc, your dairy products, yogurt, cheese, they contain zinc. Oysters are extremely high, and then also things like lobster, those are high in zinc. And then some nuts and seeds can be very high in zinc, and salmon is a really good source of zinc as well. So those are just some common foods that people may eat that are high in zinc and easy to kind of incorporate in your diet to naturally keep good zinc stores in. And so another thing to keep in mind with that is for vegetarians, if they're not going to take in those meat sources or animal sources of zinc, they can increase the bioavailability, so that their ability to absorb the zinc from their other sources, by doing things like soaking beans, seeds, or grains in water for several hours before cooking. Also eating sprouted grains, and then additionally eating leavened breads, so things like bread from like a loaf of bread versus a cracker or wafer. So those are all ways that people who are vegetarian can make sure they're getting in adequate zinc sources. So it should be noted that zinc toxicity does not happen from overconsumption of zinc foods. So taking in foods that are higher in zinc is not linked to the toxicity. It's when you kind of go overboard with those supplements and lozenges and things of that type. Okay. Another area that we have been looking into and have been incorporating into our patients with COVID-19 has been vitamin C. Vitamin C, we don't really know, once again, whether there's any specific benefit to COVID-19, but what we do know about vitamin C deficiency is that in most populations who are deficient, we find poor wound healing, increased risk of infections, and increased risk of pneumonia. And so it's really important to make sure that we are incorporating enough vitamin C in our diet for everybody. And actually, about 7 to 10% of our population is deficient in vitamin C. May not sound like all that much when you think about it. You can say, well, that means like more than 90% isn't. But if you take the fact that there's 4 million people, over 4 million people in the state of Wisconsin, that can be quite a large portion of our population that is at risk for vitamin C deficiency. Some of the highest risk populations are people who have cancer, people who have immunosuppressive disorders, so autoimmune disorders, people who take medications to suppress their immune system for other diseases, and then also people who have diabetes and people who are smokers are considered higher risk for vitamin C deficiency. So supplementation of vitamin C really won't benefit you if you aren't deficient. However, keep in mind that it's pretty simple to actually develop a deficiency if you aren't taking in adequate sources. And so what we find is that people can develop a vitamin C deficiency within 4 to 12 weeks with inadequate intakes of vitamin C. So keeping those things in mind, it's important to take that into account when we are looking at vitamin C. Our body cannot make its own vitamin C. And additionally, the best sources do come from your diet. And so fruits and vegetables are excellent sources of vitamin C. Vitamin C is a water-soluble vitamin, and so we don't really store vitamin C, minimally, if at all. And so any extra that we take in usually just goes out through our urine. So like I said, if you're not deficient, if you're taking in adequate sources in your diet, you really don't need to increase supplementation. I tell people it really adds up to some really expensive urine. Same thing with a lot of vitamins and minerals. If you aren't deficient in your diet, you're just releasing it. And so excessive amounts of vitamin C, you can actually take in excessive amounts if you're taking in over 2,000 milligrams a day, which is a really significant amount. But if you're taking it in like supplement form, it can easily happen if people are just taking as much as possible. And so with that, you get upset stomach, nausea, diarrhea. Once again, symptoms that could trigger in your mind, oh my gosh, symptoms of COVID. So once again, sometimes the treatment can make you feel like you're having symptoms of something else. And so one more reason to avoid over-supplementation of it. Best sources in your diet are things like citrus fruits, strawberries also are a great source. Things like bell peppers and broccoli are good sources of vitamin C. Cauliflower, even like a regular ordinary potato has vitamin C. So these are great ways of getting in vitamin C without having to pay extra with supplementation. You can leave the supplementation to those patients that are really requiring it right now. Additionally, when someone is ill or has an infection or things of that type, the actual need for vitamin C increases greatly. And so that's why we tend to supplement in people who are ill. So those are some things that we're doing with nutrition right now, specific to COVID-19. I have been working in the COVID-19 units here at our hospital in the intensive care, and it's been a very big challenge to meet people's nutritional needs. We're doing it through other sources like tube feeding and IV nutrition and things of that sort. So other supplementation that we are looking into with things is, with vitamins and minerals, just finding where there's deficiencies to just help keep their overall nutrition as stable as possible to help get them through this. So it's been kind of an eye-opener from the medical perspective and something totally different than what I'm accustomed to as far as the experience with COVID-19. So with COVID-19, we've all had these drastic changes to our lifestyle. I don't think anyone has gone completely unaffected by that. And so with that, a lot of people are looking to make some healthier changes or perhaps taking a look at things and saying, I've got a little more time on my hands, I'm going to make some changes, or just kind of reflecting on life and thinking of ways that they want to do things differently. Those can be great, but I caution people, as always, to just try to find 1 or 2 manageable goals before making these huge drastic changes. So when it comes to lifestyle and nutrition, one thing I can equate it to is like with New Year's, when everybody is like got these major goals. I'm going to work out every day. I'm going to completely change the way I eat. I'm going to cut out all fast food. I'm going to only eat at certain times of the day. They have like 45 different changes that they're going to make, and they're going to make it all on that day. Starting on January 1st, whole new me, right? And then, boom, the decline comes within like a week or 2 of that. And typically that burnout is just that. It's burnout. You tried to make so many changes all at once that it just, once you start to not be able to keep up that pace, which most people couldn't, if we were able to make all those changes before at one time, we probably would have. It takes our lifetime pretty much to make some of these bad habits, and it takes a while to break those habits. So if there's things that you're looking at changing about your diet, your lifestyle, try to just find 1 to 2 goals that you can narrow in on, and make it something that is more of a positive. So instead of focusing on like a negative goal of I'm going to cut out all junk food, I recommend focusing on something a little more positive of reframing it and looking at it from the standpoint of I'm going to add in 2 new fruits and vegetables to my day. That is a really good way of kind of incorporating something into your diet that is beneficial. And what we typically see happening is that when you start adding in some of those healthier foods that are full of the vitamins and minerals that we're needing to fuel our bodies, what we find is that you fill up on some of those, and then it's easier to start cutting down portions of other foods that maybe aren't as good for you or have much higher calories and not as much nutrients for you. And so it's a way of kind of making a change, but not doing it by just I'm cutting everything bad out. So adding good things in as your focus helps to start to cut out some of the bad, or some of the things that you might be overdoing. So those can be kind of some good goals to set for yourself. Additionally, when it comes to things like activity or exercise, setting a manageable goal is really important. I tell people to set their expectations low for those kind of goals. That may sound like, what is she talking about? You should be really setting super high goals for yourself. But really setting a low expectation for yourself when it comes to activity, meaning make it something that's achievable. So let's say right now, prior to COVID-19, I was exercising 1 to 2 times a day. And I came to the decision that I need to increase my exercise. So if I set a goal of I'm going to exercise every day because I am working from home and there's no excuse, so I'm going to exercise every single day. If I set 7 days a week as my goal, I'm really setting myself up for failure, because as soon as I don't do 1 day, then it's easy to be like, well, I screwed up this week, so I'll just start over again next week. And so we end up kind of just in this form of constantly redoing the goal each week and just kind of giving up on things. So if I were to take that 1 to 2 days a week and set a goal of something of, I'm going to exercise 2 to 3 times a week. So I've set an achievable goal in that I know that even on my busiest weeks, I usually can get in, if I really try, 2 times a week. And then my new goal is I'm going to try to bump it up to that 3 times a week. It's much more achievable. You have more days in the week for some flexibility. And then, of course, there's the whole idea that you can always go up. So let's say this week I had a great week and I exercised 4 times this week. And so therefore, it's an achievable goal. I feel really good about the extra that I was able to accomplish. And it kind of keeps you motivated to keep going. And so those tend to be where we see people accomplishing long-term success, because it's a goal that's achievable, it's a goal that's motivating, it's something that if they miss a day, it's not going to just throw off the entire week and their goal isn't met. And so it really is helpful to kind of set your expectation low, build your way up, and don't push yourself to this unachievable goal that's setting you up for failure. A couple of other things that I think are important. Being in your home quite a bit really leads to some different eating habits than maybe you're used to. So for some people, it might be beneficial. Maybe they're eating better because they're not on the go and eating out at, fast food or things like that. So maybe they're having more home prepared meals, and that's great. But there's also that other side of that where being at home, you're around the food. If you're working from home, it can be easy when you're sitting there to kind of have that boredom eating click in. It can be easy to do that if you're just sitting around watching TV too. And so finding a way to kind of set some structure to your day with your meals, trying to be mindful of mindless eating, taking that time to ask yourself, am I really hungry or am I bored? Am I just thirsty and need some water? That actual hunger cue sometimes is our body's first way of clicking in when we're dehydrated to try to get some more fluids in. And so it might not be actual hunger if you just ate 20 minutes ago, but if you haven't really been taking in adequate water or other things of that sort, you can start to have these like hunger cravings. That's really actually your body's first way of clicking in, hey, give me some fluids. And so keeping some of those things in mind, setting a little bit of structure to your day, trying to do some mindful eating with thinking about your snacking. And then also I tell people to set like a snack curfew. So if you know that most days you're done eating your dinner, let's say by at least 7, we're done eating, then trying to set a snack curfew of like, I'm not going to be snacking or eating after 7 p.m. It can be a really good way to just avoid that mindless snacking. It's really not necessary to keep eating as the night goes on and then just go laying straight into bed. And so with that, if you've had an adequate dinner, you really shouldn't have any need for these increased snacks at that time. So sometimes just having a little snack curfew helps people. Other things with being home with family at this time, if you have young ones at home, even if they aren't super young, trying to make nutrition part of like some family fun. It works well with little kids if you can kind of do some fun activities with them regarding trying to introduce different foods. Even if kids are what you would consider to be a picky eater, a lot of times turning it more into a game can make it something where there's not the pressure of eating it, but trying it and encouraging them to kind of explore different foods. So it can be something simple like purple carrots instead of orange carrots, trying different things like that and kind of, like a truth or dare kind of thing. So ways to incorporate different foods, that's kind of encouraging them to explore foods that maybe they're not always open to, but making it kind of a fun challenge together. I have little ones myself, and if you're at church, you usually can see them. And they, I'm realistic about the fact that it isn't always easy to get kids to want to adventure into that. But my experience has been that even with working with kids, that when we've done little games with them where we've challenged them with trying different foods, eating the colors of the rainbow, and then getting foods that are maybe a little different from each color group and having them try it, most kids will try it because they're kind of intrigued. They may find they don't like it. That's okay. And it's just something to kind of find a little bit of nutrition fun in it that's also incorporating your family together. So there's lots of different ways to get in activity, whether it's as an individual or as a family. YouTube is a great source of videos and things like for yoga, Pilates, different types of stuff. They have a lot of those things that are family oriented. I personally have tried doing the family yoga, and it works, but whether or not my kids, keep a long-term interest in it, but at least we're getting there and we're getting interested in different things. It's a fun way of kind of introducing kids to things that maybe you typically didn't do together as a family. So finding activities and things that can be enjoyable together, or finding whatever your solo enjoyment is, because we all need that downtime as well. But there are free ways of finding activities to do, and of course just getting outside is a great free way of getting activity in as well. And then a couple of other quick things. The other thing that I see people doing a lot at home, more so at home than maybe when they're in the office, is that people tend to be overcaffeinating and additionally maybe relying more on like sugary pick-me-ups. When you're kind of stuck sitting in the same spot, you don't have as much social interaction with other people, coworkers. It can be easy to just kind of feel that a little sluggish and rely a little bit more on a little extra boost. The thing with overcaffeinating is it can lead to increased dehydration. That tends to make you feel just overall not as good. You can have headaches. You can tend to just feel a little jittery. And additionally, with more dehydration, once again, you can feel more cravings as well for different foods. So avoid over-caffeinating. Try to really track yourself instead of mindlessly pouring or popping open some kind of caffeinated drink. And then additionally, those high sugary foods, we tend to look at those as like a quick pick-me-up, and they do. They give you that quick burst, and yeah, that was what I needed, but it lasts for like less than 30 minutes usually, and then you crash hard, and now you really feel like you need something again, and then you go back and you take a little more. And so that habit really just leads to this crash and burn cycle. So finding better alternatives or snacks, or maybe just taking an activity break where you walk around for like 5 minutes just to kind of get things moving and to distract your mind so that you're not falling into that boredom eating or like over caffeinating or trying to get those quick energy bursts that you feel like you're missing out on. And then finally, one thing I really want to encourage is during this time to be aware of social media pressures. So a lot of times we worry about that in regards to body image and other peer pressure type of things. But right now, I see a lot of people talking about how now is the time to achieve all these things that you couldn't before because we have the time. You're stuck at home, so there's no reason why you shouldn't have all these, exercise that you're doing daily, regularly. There's no reason why you aren't cooking 45 meal prep meals a day to get ready for things. There's no reason not to have family home-cooked meals constantly. And yes, all of those things are great. We encourage them. But like I said, we can't change everything all at once. And it's unrealistic to think that in this time of significant stress in all of our lives, we're in an unknown time frame for everybody. And everybody's stressors are a little bit different, or a lot different for some people. Some people are still actively going into work, and then they have to come home and try to manage or decompress from what they experienced during their day at work. I know that's been a struggle for me. And then there's other people who are working from home constantly, and just the idea of trying to fit in all of these cool, fun activities with their kids, in addition to making all these home-cooked meals, in addition to becoming an exercise fanatic, in addition to eating a perfect diet. It just is crushing. It feels like you're a failure before you even start. And so, like I said before about making small, manageable goals, this is really more important at this time than turning yourself into this whole new person that when you pop out of quarantine, everyone's going to be like, whoa, what did they do? Look at how amazing their life is. It's not realistic. It's not realistic for anyone. So we all have different battles that we are facing, and trying to just find some goals that are uplifting and positive for ourselves in regards to nutrition and wellness. Those are what we should focus on. Things that make us feel good about ourselves. Don't compare what somebody else is doing to what your individual goals. Sometimes maybe just the goal of surviving the day without having a complete breakdown. And keep in mind that there's a lot of resources out there for everybody. We do have time on our hands, a lot of different people. And a lot of us are looking for ways to help. So whether it's being a social support to each other, finding those people, relying on your parish in ways to kind of keep you spiritually motivated and feeling good. And then additionally, even things with food insecurity. I know here at our own parish, we're working on ways to help that and programs to help people who are experiencing that. And so I think as a community coming together and encouraging one another, and also as an individual keeping in mind small healthy goals, we'll get through this well together. So I thank you so much for your time, and thank Father for the opportunity to do this. And if there are ever any questions or concerns that you may have, feel free to reach out and contact me. I'm always willing to be a resource. So thank you, and have a great day.